I was first elected in 2006 and again in 2010 and then again in 2014. In 2010 and 2014, even though unopposed, I garnered the most cast votes of any candidate. Certainly, in my opinion, an affirmation of the voters that they were more than satisfied with the performance of their sheriff's office and their sheriff. I have over 37 years of law enforcement and public safety experience, formal education, and specialized training with significant crisis management and law enforcement and corrections leadership experience. I've hired good people. I hold them accountable, I train them well, and I continue to reinvest in them. The Sheriff's Office celebrates a rich history, and we have rich traditions, focusing on current challenges of public safety in our community. We do this by utilizing cutting-edge technology to track and establish crime trends, communicate with our citizens, work to improve the quality of life in our communities in partnership with our citizens, and identify and prepare for future challenges. My goal has been and will continue to be to establish your St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office as a premier law enforcement agency that is responsive and accountable to its communities. I appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phelan.
Well, good evening, everybody. Again, I want to thank the NAACP and League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight and stuff. Before I get into a little bit of my background, let me answer the first question that I always get. Do you have any law enforcement background? That answer is no. Okay. My background is as a military Navy officer for almost 27 years. Graduated from the Naval Academy in 1979 after growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Became a Navy pilot and served in many squadrons. Flew combat missions off of the USS Midway and Desert Storm. Led a squadron out of Whidbey Island. Was a test pilot here and a program manager here. Led the test wing here at Paxford. Lived here off and on since 1987. Continuous since 1997. Our home is in Hollywood. Our children we raised here, all graduated from Leonardtown High School, and have gone on to successful careers on their own. Okay. Second question I usually get is, Tom, why are you doing this? You know, if you had a successful Navy career, you now have you're in the business world as a defense contractor. Why would you do this? Okay, several reasons. When you dig into what's going on in the Sheriff's Office outside of the public forum and the public media, you find out that because what do you need to solve the issues here in the county? School safety, heroin opioid crisis, and just plain traffic. You have to have adequate personnel. Okay? Without adequate personnel, you can't do the job and support the community in public safety. That is what I want to try and bring to St. Mary's County here is my experience as a leader and as a mentor that I grew up with, and I can bring that level of expertise to the Sheriff's Office. I can work with county commissioners, that's the budget authority. I can work with the other federal agencies, such as the state police, to form a good team to support in the public safety area here in St. Mary's County. And again, I thank you all for being here tonight. I know it's warm, but we've got at least the doors open, and we'll take your questions. Thank you.
This is for Mr. Phelan. With no law enforcement experience, why do you think you are qualified to be sheriff, and how will you deal with your lack of knowledge and experience?
I think I started the answer to that question already. So I believe that my military experience, where I grew up as a leader and as a junior officer in a squadron, I had mentors from both the enlisted and the officer level that brought me along through training, mentorship. This is a Sheriff's Office as a larger organization. Yes, there's organizational pieces that I would have to learn. I have attended their Citizens Academy, which gives you a very top level piece of the Sheriff's Office. But any organization you go into, you got to learn how they run, and that's what I think I can do for it.
This is a multi-part question for both candidates. For over 13 years, local politicians have struggled to address the issue for building a new jail despite state approval. Do you find this project necessary? How do you justify your decision for or against? Are you for or against a renovation or a new facility? What are some of the key issues facing the Corrections Department today? Multi-part. Oh, that's for Sheriff Cameron.
Yes, thank you for that multi-part question. Yes, the answer is yes. Yes, I'm in favor of this refinement and the expansion that is underway now because it addresses some critical aspects of the detention center. It addresses some of the components of the Justice Reinvestment Act. It addresses components of inmate rehabilitation. It addresses necessary components of mental health, substance abuse treatment. It supports our new pretrial initiative. It resolves an overcrowding issue that we have right now. And it also addresses some employee attrition challenges that we have right now. So that is for the refinement and the expansion. But even once that's successfully completed, I think we need to immediately begin discussions about a new adult detention center for the future.
Mr. Phelan?
I would also have to agree with that. As I followed this issue over many years, I've lived in here in the county. You definitely need a renovation of the jail. You can certainly use a new facility, and it's tied to, one, the rehabilitation of the inmates there. I've had the backstage tours of the jail itself, so I've seen their facility. I've seen what is needed there from both, confinement opportunities or confinement facilities there, as well as the treatment piece of it and stuff. So, but yes, I would agree that we need that facility.
This is also a question for both candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Phelan. If it is proven that a deputy was untruthful during the performance of their duties, should they remain a deputy?
I would say it depends, because you have to keep police officers at a very high standard. There's no question about that. But every opportunity out there is a learning experience and an opportunity for furthering their expertise and their experience. I myself, as a junior officer, was taken out to the woodshed several times. Said, "Tom, don't do that again." And you learn from those experiences, and to make you grow as a person and grow as with your experience, so you can file that away the next time. When you come into a situation or something similar, that you can respond appropriately.
Sheriff Cameron?
Thank you. My opinion is a little bit different on this. As a career police officer and now as sheriff for the last 11 and a half years, this is what I know. If you have a sustained finding of truthfulness, you cannot stay amongst our ranks. We are a profession that espouses that we are held to a higher standard, and you have to walk that walk. So, and I've heard this argument about minor or frivolous kind of complaints, or frivolous lies, or minor lies. There's no such thing, ladies and gentlemen, especially when it comes to your liberty and your freedom. Because if an employee will lie about something minor, what will they lie about when it is you on the line? So we're adamant about maintaining that. I don't apologize for that. The other thing that I know based on the Brady Law is if I have a member that has a sustained finding of truthfulness, our state's attorney and most of the state's attorneys I know across the state will not allow them to testify. That means that case is dropped. And if you're a victim of a crime, that is no way to satisfy our obligation to you. Thank you.
This is also for both candidates, and we'll start with Sheriff Cameron. Do we have a school-to-prison pipeline in St. Mary's County? If so, what would you do to correct it?
So that's interesting. There's been a lot of discussion on that. So I think our partners, and that's a term that's overused, but I think it's very appropriate for St. Mary's County because we have very, very strong partnerships. One of the things that when you came in, and some of you are wearing the community center, I think that's a component part. So if we can raise enough money to create a community center, I think that interrupts that pipeline of those young people into our detention center. So many things are tied to how people end up in our detention center, either through drugs and mental health, other co-occurring disorders. But one of the things we know is graduation rates directly reflect our incarceration rates. So clearly, we have to do more with our youth to dissuade them and deter them away from jail. And I think that's money best spent in their younger years when they're very impressionable. Thank you.
Mr. Phelan?
Thank you, great question. You know, part of that, another piece of that is school resource officers. Do we have enough of them? No. I attended the Leonardtown High School this before the Great Mills tragedy happened, and a question was posed, why don't we have SROs in all the schools? The sheriff's answer was, I don't have the personnel. And we have to have personnel to satisfy some of these issues. Having those school resource officers not only provides that security, provides that presence and potential visibility and mentorship to those students in the schools. So I think that's a piece that is also needed. You know, the added school resource officers to provide that piece to the schools. Thank you.
Mr. Phelan, this question is for you. What is the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and why is it important to law enforcement?
I'm going to have to refer back to my history lessons, of which I have forgotten. So I will have to be honest with you that I do not know that off the top of my head.
Sheriff Cameron?
Fourth Amendment, that's for you to be free from unreasonable searches in your homes. That makes us in law enforcement adhere to your constitutional liberties and freedoms. That's exactly what that's about as it falls in our realm.
Sheriff Cameron, how do you think you can appeal to the youth to encourage more young people to enter the field of law enforcement?
That's a great question. And our best recruiters are our personnel. And our best personnel that recruit are young officers or young and tenure officers, because we have a lot of second career people that look like the very diverse communities that they work in. And that is working for us right now. I know that members of the NAACP know that we have an agreement, and they agreed to help us recruit, and we have been successful. Are we where we need to be? No. Will we ever stop recruiting diversity? No. I think that's the first step. The second step is having a staff, deputy sheriffs, correctional officers, and civilians that are communicative, that talk to people, that are empathetic, and treat people like they want to be treated. There's a different culture in the sheriff's office, and very much the culture is one of engagement of the community. Communication, you hear a lot about de-escalation. It's simply treating people like a human and being empathetic. Thank you.
Mr. Phelan?
Public safety in the community.
This is for both candidates. Mr. Phelan, what are some key aspects of community policing, and how will you implement or improve community policing in our community?
Community policing is probably one of the key items for public safety here in the community. You look at what the cops unit has done here along Great Mills Road in Lexington Park. Great strides in what they've been able to do and their presence out there. That has to be taken to a lot of the other communities out there. We're a very diverse rural community, so it's not going to work in every part of the county. But that is what I believe one of the key features and the key focus is having a good, strong community policing effort where you have that interaction with the community members and that positive respect that the sheriff talked about between the officers and the folks in the community. Thank you.
Sheriff Cameron?
Thank you. I wanted to touch on something Tom had said, and he's exactly right. And those SROs in the schools are also another very strong and important component in recruiting. So community policing, we're a community policing agency. And the reason I say that, and I define community policing, one of the most important ingredients is you have to be absolutely committed to sustainable, viable communities. And the only way to work towards that goal is to work in concert with your communities. So as a law enforcement agency, you have to be more concerned with the outcomes, not the outputs. Outputs are arrests and citations, necessary in an enforcement, but outcomes are more important. And what is the outcome? Again, viable, sustainable communities. if we need to do community cleanups, if we need to address noise ordinances. That's a holistic approach to law enforcement. But you can arrest a person that's intoxicated on Great Mills Road every day. But really, to go beyond that, you have to scratch the surface away and find out why they're out there. Get them into treatment, get them into housing, get them into a job. That's community policing.
This is also a question for both candidates, and we'll start with Sheriff Cameron. What capital improvement project do you feel is most important for the Sheriff's Office, and explain why?
Our capital improvement project list would be first, the jail expansion and refinement. That is in progress. I think we're on schedule. We have support monetarily from the state and support monetarily from the commissioners. Very necessary. The Lexington Park Community Policing Station, again, another very important CIP project that is on schedule. It's supported by the commissioners. That money is currently in the budget. Very important. The next CIP project would be space. Captain Kirk said it on Star Trek, space is the final frontier. It certainly is for the Sheriff's Office and our current office space. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it really is. So imagine a crime lab that's limited by space, and we have new equipment and new ways to analyze evidence. We can't do it. We simply can't do it because of space. We're getting ready to put a modular building behind our Sheriff's Office headquarters, so our personnel in the Maryland State Police can bring in drug evidence safely, not be exposed to fentanyl. Thank you. Good question.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes, excellent question. I'd have to totally agree with the sheriff there. The jail would be the #1 priority. I think the capital investment program that they have gets scrutinized through the county commissioner's budget process, and so I think the way they prioritize those projects, and certainly the jail would be the top of the list.
The next question is for Mr. Phelan. You are running for sheriff with little experience in law enforcement / running a prison. What is your motivation in running for sheriff, and what do you offer that Sheriff Cameron doesn't offer?
My motivation is to bring in some fresh leadership and a fresh perspective and an experience that I brought from being in around the globe, around the world, in multiple commands, where I've picked up leadership traits and leadership experience from when I first became a junior officer and a junior pilot, to leading a major program and leading the test wing here at Pax River. That's an experience that you can't gather in a lot of everyday work. Yes, the sheriff has been here. He's lived and worked here. He's been a police officer for 30 plus years. Been the sheriff for almost 12. It's time for a change, and that's what I can bring is that experience in leadership and running an organization, running a big budget. All those things is what I can bring, because when you look at what the office is, it's another business. They got to build a budget, execute it, defend it, and execute it. Thank you.
Sheriff Cameron, what is your stance on diversity hiring?
Well, I think we've talked about that. We have a diversity hiring plan that's in place at the Sheriff's Office. We accentuate that by targeting diverse applicants and targeting applicants, period. For the first time in several years, we're in single-digit vacancies, which is very important. And please understand that that's just not a local phenomenon. This is a national phenomenon with challenge of police and corrections resources, more so in police. So one of the things that we've done is we're very cautious how we depict in our advertising, how we depict our employees, to indicate that there's potential and advancement potential for diverse candidates. We attend a number of hiring fairs at traditionally African-American colleges. We go to military bases. We advertise. WHUR is a perfect example, and we've had very good response from really this targeted diversity recruiting plan.
Mr. Phelan?
Yeah, I would totally agree. You certainly want to try and match up the diversity of your communities with the diversity of your sheriff's office there. But you also don't want to discount the fact that you may have qualified applicants that may not meet those diversity goals that have been set forward or that you'd want to have. So
For both candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Phelan, what are the main issues facing corrections today?
Well, certainly it's the recidivism that goes along. Once folks have been released, how often they come back. And I know they have the data for that. Certainly, I think it's probably one of the biggest things there.
Sheriff Cameron?
Yeah, thank you. I think I touched on this earlier. So one of the, several of the biggest challenges, one, satisfying the Justice Reinvestment Act. Two, inmate rehabilitation. So we need to accentuate our time with these people that we have in our detention center because they are returning to a neighborhood near you. Mental health. The majority of our inmates in that detention center have co-occurring disorders, not just a chemical dependency to alcohol or drugs, but some trauma-induced mental crisis potentially. So we deal with a lot of co-occurring disorders. We are the largest provider of mental health services in St. Mary's County. We have recently initiated what has been called by the judges the gold standard in our pretrial initiative, and that is going very well. Overcrowding is certainly a big challenge. Employee attrition, solitary confinement is another thing that is changing in the application of humane incarceration. So a lot of challenges in corrections, certainly.
This is also for both candidates, and we'll start with Sheriff Cameron.
The simple answer is traffic enforcement. And I offer this within the context of it's resource-based. We had previously 2 people in traffic safety. I reduced that by 100%. It's now 1. But with that said, that's 1 individual that we try to rotate through communities where we have speeding complaints in communities. The rest of the patrol force, both us and the Maryland State Police, enforce traffic on our roadways. It's difficult to be everywhere all the time. One of the things we've been successful in, and I know that some people in this room know this, is videos that were taken that were either sent to us directly or on Facebook, and we followed up and we've actually charged people. Commissioner Jarbo forwarded me one not too long ago. One of the things we're looking at now is we do a comprehensive traffic report at the end of every year. We're going to participate in the state's strategic highway safety plan. We're reforming a traffic safety committee. I'm trying to bring in as many citizens as possible to look at our enforcement, our education, and our engineering.
Mr. Phelan?
I travel these roads every day from Hollywood down to the base here, so I'm well versed in the traffic problems that we have here in the county. Not only down Great Mills Road, but up the 235 corridor headed northbound. I think it has to be in conjunction with the state highway authorities there to further analyze the traffic issues. Sort of distracted driving without enforcement of that, you're not going to fix that. But the overcrowded roads, the roads we have, and the blatant violations that a lot of the drivers do, whether it's blowing through the right turn only lane to running red lights considerably on a lot of the intersections. If you're number 1 at that intersection, you've got to be looking both ways before you pull out. Thank you.
This is the last question I have, so if anyone else has a question for the sheriff's candidates, please let the runners know. We're going to start this one with Mr. Phelan. What is the Supreme Court case of Miranda versus Arizona, and why is it important to law enforcement?
As Tim said, there's probably a lawyer in the room that was asking me those questions, so thank you for that. I will just go back to, again, what I want to try and bring to the sheriff's office. A little bit of change, a little bit of new leadership, perspective from my military experience in my military, as well as my business experience, both being in the acquisition world as a program manager, and now in the business world as a defense contractor. All those things I think can factor in. Yes, there's a lot I have to learn about the inner workings of the sheriff's office. No question about that. But that's a ongoing process that would take some time. I understand that, but it's what I can bring as a prospective sheriff with my experience. Thank you very much for being here, and again, thanks for the League of Women Voters and NAACP for putting this on tonight.
Thank you, Sheriff Cameron.
So I'd first like to thank the League of Women Voters and again the NAACP St. Mary's chapter for tonight's panel. Tom, I'd like to thank you for your answer about Great Mills. I really would. That was, I really appreciate that. And I would tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that day I not only was proud of the man's military career and his career after the military, I mean that sincerely. But I went through a police academy. I started the foundation in a police academy. Just like a doctor goes to medical school, just like a lawyer goes to law school. And just like the other professions, as a police officer attending the police academy, as I ascended that rung, that ladder, I became a supervisor and I received specific training. And then I got into management and I received specific training. And then I was in an executive leadership position and I got more training. Not only the training, but the experience as I learned and I mastered the mastery of those skills. In my profession, that's all I know. I'm blessed to be in a profession where I wear my passion that's at uniform every day. I love the people I work with and I love the people that I work for. And this is my home. My wife and my two boys, we live here. I hope that they will continue to live here and raise their family. So one candidate has real law enforcement experience and corrections experience, workforce level, supervision and management level, and then finally in the executive leadership realm. I'm accessible, I'm approachable, and I'm available to my personnel and to you. I'm committed to continuous improvement of the Sheriff's Office, and I remain always passionate about learning about my profession and my cops and my community. We have an incredibly talented workforce here that accomplishes great things. They solve crime, protect our community, and save lives. I accomplished nothing, but we are mighty, and that I have learned from my community. It's a privilege to serve you, and I humbly ask for your vote June 26th. Thank you all very much.